Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the Ground and Poundcast, and also happy late Thanksgiving. This is the weekend after Thanksgiving, and we didn't have a UFC event like we have on most Saturdays, so we have an open episode to talk about a variety of topics. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to be talking about everything from the recent betting scandals that have swept the MMA universe, some recent news involving Ilia Topuria and his title reign, some upcoming gripes about matchmaking, an injury update from Tom Aspinall, and whatever else we could think of on the fly. So, I am one of your co-hosts, the world's okayest jiu-jitsu blue belt Vince, and I am joined with the man whose idea was to start this podcast in first place, Rick. Tell everyone hi, Rick.
Hey, everybody.
And also the soothsayer of the MMA universe, Roy Damas. We call him Roy for short. Tell everyone hi, Roy.
Hi, Roy.
Anyway, so this news is a little bit old at this point. Not super old. About, was it a month ago or 2 months
Things
ago?
Things move quick in the MMA world, man.
They do move very quick. So there was some recent betting scandal, fight fixing allegations that came up a while back. It was the same day as the Game 7 of the MLB World Series, so a lot of people thought it would just fly under the radar, but apparently it didn't. Rick, I'm going to pass it off to you because you follow the betting game a lot more than Roy and I do, so you want to take us through kind of what happened there?
All right, so we had a contest between Isaac Dolgarian and Yadier Del Val take place on Saturday, November 1st, and prior to this contest taking place, Dolgarian was a minus 250 favorite, which means if you put $250 down, you'd win 100 in return. Well, a couple of hours before this fight took place, the odds shifted significantly. It's almost unheard of. Yadier Del Val became a minus 800 favorite. It swung 1,000 points, which is unheard of in betting. So an $800 bet for Del Val would have yielded you only 100 in return. So for a guy to go from favorite to massive underdog, and then a lot of prop bets come in. And prop bets are when you say, hey, something's going to take place in this round, or something will take place in that round, or this many more strikes will be landed. It's something other than the actual outcome per se. You know, you can have different ways of looking, oh, this guy might win this round but still lose a fight. Well, they had a whole bunch of bets come in for a first round submission for Yadier Del Val. And it's very strange because you're not going to really return that much money if you do this long term, if any at all, because it's such a long shot bet. People don't really do them. You don't really win much. But anyway, a lot of money did come in right before that fight for a first round submission. And lo and behold, you had the betting organization, the UFC, looks at and goes through, and they came to him and said, hey, there's been a massive shift here in these odds. Do you want the fight to continue? Well, to Dana White's credit, he said he did want the fight to continue. He wanted to see it play out, see if it actually was a real thing. And of course, they go to him before, they go to Yadier Del Val before the fight. They say, has anybody approached you? And he said, no, nobody has approached me on throwing any fights. And so he said, okay, let them fight it out. And of course, it plays out exactly the way the money was bet, which was the first round Yadier Del Val submission. And now we have this investigation going on. You got Jason Herzog, who's been implicated as well. You know, he's not doing any officiating anymore. Again, this took place first, so, 4 weeks ago. And so there's plenty of ramifications to come, but we saw that odd shift. We saw the way it played out, and it certainly looks like there was some foul play at hand.
Right, yeah. A little correction on your details there. Is Dolgarian that was approached about the fight if there's any kind of strange stuff going on. When Dana White was made privy to the big shift, it was Dolgarian that was the one that the shift was under, that he was going to lose by first round submission. They went to him, and he's like, no, I'm gonna take this dude out, and sure enough, he loses in the first round. So very, very suspicious indeed. So the question I have for you guys, and I guess I'll pass it off to Roy on this one because he's been silent on this topic so far. What do we think should happen moving forward to prevent this, or how to deal with it, or anything like that? So what do you think, Roy?
I think the biggest thing that we could do to prevent junk like this from going forward is take the objectivity out of judging. If someone gets kicked in the nards or poked in the eye, they lose a point. It's not maybe they lose a point, maybe they don't lose a point. Was it intentional? Was it intentional? If you take that objectivity away and start applying the penalties evenly across the board, the ref's only job at that point is to make sure that the fighters stay safe. There's not very much you can do to influence a fight if you can't, if all your job is to say, is to stop when somebody goes too far.
But yeah, that's really looking at it from an issue with the ref. In this case, it was the fighter, though. The fighter basically was accused of throwing the fight, which is what apparently happened here.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you're never going to be able to get it completely out of the sport. But what you could do is make it so expensive that nobody wants to risk it. These fighters are not paid well. Upping their pay to where they're not so easily bribed, because one of the reports I read said that the guy was offered $60,000. $60,000 should not be enough to sway a professional athlete. It's not enough to sway an NBA player. It's not enough to sway an NFL player. So why is it more than some of our UFC fighters will make in a year?
Right. Yeah, that's fair. Dolgarian was released from the UFC after all this went down, and the official word was it was because of, performance, but
yeah, he performed in the octagon to lose a fight.
Right. Well, I mean, they kind of alluded to, like, whenever a person loses a lot of matches, that they just get cut because they're just, not quality enough. But you read between the lines is because it was very shady in the way he lost. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Rick? What do you think we should do to combat this moving forward when it comes to fight fixing, betting scandal, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, I really believe you got to pay them more. And we just saw this massive deal with Paramount get signed where there's literally billions of dollars exchanging hands. And it makes you wonder, if these guys are the elite of the elite, why aren't they getting paid as such? Why do we have guys that make $70,000, $75,000 a year? You're not going to see the big Israel Adesanyas and Alex Pierres get influenced by money like that. But there's a whole lot of guys on your roster who don't make money like that. In fact, most don't. So, that amount of money is actually a larger percentage to their paycheck than it would be for any other professional sport. And I think we just have to figure out a way to be able to balance that out better because, if you don't have purity in your sport, there's no quicker way to lose any fans. And so you have to protect the sanctity of your sport at all costs. So, the way I see it, you have to pay. If you can't afford to pay fighters six figures, then they shouldn't be on your roster. And I think six figures is a good starting point, obviously seven figures and up, but you have to be able to pay them enough, or else maybe you just need to reduce the amount of fighters on your roster. But something has to give.
Right. There really is a big discrepancy when it comes to the fighters on the top versus the fighters on the bottom and the pay. Because a lot of times they'll do these announcements of like fighter payout, and we don't really know what the real payout is because there's always like stuff on the backside we don't see.
Endorsements and such.
Right. Endorsements, sponsorships, all that kind of stuff. But like the official like UFC cutting you a paycheck according to this fight, according to the numbers that they give us, like sometimes they'll show us a number and it will be something that I make in a year, and I'm middle class for the record, and if that's the only time they fight this year, then another thing that people don't realize is sure that's the check they get cut, but they have to pay their gym and they have to pay their coaches. There's a lot of payout that the fighters have to do. So I've heard a lot of reports on a fighter saying, yeah, I made this much. You can see on the report that I made this much. But whenever it comes to how much it costs me to do this training and all this kind of stuff and traveling and stuff like that, actually I come out way behind. So there's a lot of fighters that, like on the lower end, are forced to work, side jobs on top of trying to train and prepare to fight the best in the world. Whereas you have guys who are at the top, one fight, maybe two fights, they're set for life. So it's a huge discrepancy from the top to the bottom, and it needs to be at least balanced more than it is. I'm not saying that you need to pay the guys in the prelims millions a fight, but it's got to be enough where they're not struggling to make ends meet. We got people complaining about, my family's poor, living in a bad neighborhood, and I'm trying to get them out of that, and I can't do it because I make $15,000 for this fight, and this will be one of two fights I make this year. And after I pay all my coaches, I'm basically left with nothing. So I'm still working as a construction worker just to keep the electricity on. And if you're on the big stage, that is the UFC, that's not acceptable.
No. I mean, we had 3 fighters in the last event who openly asked for the $50,000 bonuses because it would make such a huge difference to their lives. Your fighters shouldn't be begging for money on the world stage.
Right. I agree completely.
Yep. And
especially not when you've got a $7.7 billion deal on the table. I expect them to spend almost 50% of that on talent, though.
That's a lot of zeros. I wonder where it's going.
It really is. And if the UFC stays on track with what they currently spend, they'll spend, I think it's 18% on their talent, whereas the NFL, if they got that money, would spend 48% on talent.
That's crazy difference there. Let's not even talk about boxing. You could be a no-name person of boxing and make way more than MMA fighters do, even in the UFC, which is the biggest MMA brand. So it's pretty wild whenever you put all that together.
Which is why you see a lot of UFC fighters. They always ask, why don't boxers go into the octagon? Well, UFC fighters go into the boxing ring because of the amount of money they can make. It's all about the money. That's why we don't see it go the other way. It's not necessarily even because, the boxer's afraid to get into the octagon because of this or that. And they're chasing the dollars. That's why they're prize fighters. They're all there to make money, no matter what their combat sport is. And so you see a lot of these UFC guys go chase that money because boxing has it. They promote it, and they generate a lot more revenue.
Right.
The other thing is that you can do boxing a lot longer than you can do MMA. It's not uncommon to see a 45-year-old boxer. It's unheard of to see a 45-year-old MMA fighter.
Right. People retiring in their mid-30s, late 30s. Whenever you hear about people winning titles in their early 40s, they're like, oh, my goodness, this guy is showing that even way up there in age. And I'm like, bro, that's my age. Stop it.
Well, to your point, George Foreman won heavyweight champ of the world in his 50s.
Right. And what is the oldest UFC champions that we've had?
Randy Couture is the oldest ever.
And I think the second oldest is Glover Teixeira, if I'm not mistaken. And they're like 41, 45.
Yeah.
Whenever they won those titles.
And they were huge outliers to stay at the top levels.
Right. So that's all I got on the fight fixing betting scandal topic. Anything else you want to add on that?
Okay. So I don't understand betting at all, rapid fire, Rick. So I need you to educate me. If you've got a bet, you said he was negative 200. That means if you put $200 down, you make $100, right?
Correct.
So what did it take to bring him from negative 200 to the opponent being negative 800?
Monumental shift of money. I don't know the number exactly. I don't even know if that's been released, but a monumental shift of money. Typically, whenever you see a line move, it'll go from let's say a minus 200 to maybe a minus 110, which is minimal, right? But when you see it not only flip from somebody's being a favorite to the other person is a massive favorite, and at minus 800 is nothing short of a massive favorite, then it makes you say, And then when all the money came in that was reflected, it would be in that first round, which is unheard of. Again, people don't normally place those types of bets. You're not going to hit on those too often. I mean, it's just too hard to even pick a winner, much less they'll win in this round by, guillotine or whatever. It's unheard of. So for everybody to put their money in on the same thing, it had to be a lot of money, and it shifted that line so much that it drew people's attention. And here's the thing. It's really hard to be able to, make any money anymore in the betting if you're doing it illegally without people noticing, because people get greedy. And so, hey, I'll put $1,000 on a first round submission. Well, if a few people do that, it's going to draw people's attention. It gets flagged. They run algorithms. They can see, oh, wait a minute. Hold on, all this money came in on this one thing. It's very difficult to successfully pull off. You can do it in minor amounts, but whenever that line shifted that much, it drew the attention of everybody, government down, and that's how it got flagged.
Right. So if you look at, I think one of the reasons why we were able to see such a shift was because these guys were fighting on the prelims on a fight night on the same day as Game 7 of the World Series, like I said earlier. So chances are there wasn't a lot of money on this fight anyway. Like if you just take the total bets, there's always going to be some fights because people just go in, they put a few bucks here, a few bucks there, But if you look at like the total numbers of how much was put on a particular fighter,
the volume,
it's not going to be a ton for this type of fight. You'll see a ton on title fights, on pay-per-views, but not a couple of nobodies on the prelims on a fight night. And so whenever someone all of a sudden drops several thousand or however much it was on the other side, well, then that is enough to where you can see a massive shift because there wasn't already a lot of volume on it, like you said. And another thing I want to point out with this fight, if you've actually watched the fight, and a lot of people on commentary were talking about this, whenever he was put on the ground, he lost by rear naked choke, which was the prediction. He was going to lose in the first round by submission, which is what happened. It's like this fighter all of a sudden forgot how to defend a very basic rear naked choke. 2-on-1 grips on the arm, and even like whenever the guy's trying to set up the rear naked choke, there are certain things you do to get your hands in place to start setting with defenses, and he wasn't really doing any of that. As someone who trains jiu-jitsu myself, I was looking at that and I'm like, this looks very white belt, like late stage white belts, like people have been in like maybe 6 months to a year would know how to defend a rear naked choke better than this. And even Daniel Cormier and a few other people were like, what was that? Like that is not UFC caliber. Like a fighter with that much experience, wasn't a ton of experience. This wasn't a veteran, but still a professional fighter should have better knowledge on how to defend a basic attack like that. So that's another thing, is just the way he lost it very much looked like he was kind of letting it happen. Like he was kind of like one arm pretending to try to defend it, but he wasn't really putting his all into defending it. So that was
Cormier
another thing as well.
Cormier called it out immediately. Yeah, right. He did. He goes, we're at this level and you're doing this. I mean, he was trying to throw punch. He's in a rear naked choke and he's trying to throw punches at one point too. It's like, no. That's not how you get out of that. You're not going to knock him out. You're going to get choked out if you do that. Like,
yeah, you got to do 2-on-1 grips on the arm that's choking you, and you got to turn your head in the opposite direction of the choke and try to create some type of separation. Like that's what you need to do immediately. And he would kind of like limply would grab one arm and not really pull much and then just swing with the other hand. It was ridiculous.
It was.
So anyway, that's all I got on that one. Do we want to move on to the next topic?
Sure.
All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is Ilia Topuria. So it seems like he is going through some personal issues right now. We're not going to go too deep into that because that's not really we're not a drama-focused podcast. But he is going through some personal issues that has led to him announcing that he's not going to be able to fight for a while. How long is a while? We don't know for sure, but he said it won't be as early as the spring of next year. He hasn't announced that he is dropping the title, but because he has taken such a long break, the UFC has opted to set up
make the most brilliant move of all time.
That's sarcasm. So they are...
That is not sarcasm. This is a stroke of brilliance. All right, so hear me out.
Hold on. Let me at least get through my thought. They are setting up an interim title fight between Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje. I wanted to at least get that out first. That is what the UFC has decided to do. So, go ahead, Roy.
All right. So Paddy, not ready to fight Ilia. Even the most hardcore of Paddy supporters said that he needed a fight between now and then. Gaethje, perfect way to extend Paddy's streak of beating on old washed-up men. Gaethje said he would retire if he didn't get a shot at the title. No way he was beating Ilia. But Paddy, he might be able to take him, might be able to beat him up. It's going to have all the star power that Paddy brings. It's going to have all the good memories of Gaethje's career. And Ilia doesn't have to risk being beaten or anything while he takes care of his personal life. This was a stroke of brilliance to put this up. And the only person who got seriously screwed was Arman.
Right. There's a lot of complaints about that from Arman and also a lot of the fan base because a lot of people thought that Arman Tsarukyan should be next. What do you think?
But Arman won't walk away. Gaethje will. And Paddy's star power, I mean, Arman versus Gaethje isn't going to sell the tickets for a interim fight.
I don't know. What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is well, it's unfortunate, but this is kind of where the business part of it comes into play. You think of the UFC as always pitting the best against the best. Well, it's really not true. We see instances all the time where they'll take somebody who's not in the top one or two, or maybe even three or four, and they'll get thrown into a big fight because they sell. You got to factor in it's the beginning of the Paramount deal. They want to start it with big names. I've been saying for the longest time, Patty's going to end up fighting for the title. Now, it's an interim title, albeit, but it's a title nonetheless because Patty brings in the fans. Patty brings in people from Europe, overseas. He's going to be able to market it. Of course, he's good on the mic. Everything about him is intriguing. And so from that perspective, if you got a guy out there who's going to be able to hype up and sell your next big pay-per-view, even though now it's gone to a different form and fashion on Paramount, but somebody's going to be able to sell tickets, somebody who's going to draw eyeballs, that's Paddy Pimblett. And unfortunately, even though I think we could all agree Arman Sarukian's the better fighter, he doesn't have the bigger name. He just doesn't really do anything to attract a lot of attention outside of the octagon. And so we're seeing the business aspect where, hey, here's one guy in Paddy who's going to be able to just bring them all in. People can't wait to see what he's going to say at the press conference. Is he going to call somebody something crazy? It's more exciting when Paddy's involved. Now, that said, he's fighting a 37-year-old man in Justin Gaethje. Gaethje's great, but Gaethje's been through a lot of wars. Gaethje was threatening to retire if he didn't get a title fight, which I feel like the UFC kind of called his bluff in a sense, because I don't necessarily know that Gaethje deserved a title fight. But at the same time, now they kind of get to take care of everybody. And I guess Arman's going to come out on the back end looking to fight. The winner of that versus Ilya, I'm not sure. Arman just seems like he's always the odd man out. But you're making Gaethje happy. Paddy's going to bring in the money. Ilya gets to handle his business. And then, pretty much everybody wins except Arman Sarukian here.
Right. I've seen some fan theories on why Arman Sarukian was not getting the title next. As you mentioned, part of it is that he's just not as exciting. It's not as much of a draw. But also, you say he hasn't done a whole lot outside the octagon. He's done a few things outside the octagon that's drawn some attention, but not positive attention. One of those examples is whenever he was at the weigh-ins in his last fight, or not the weigh-ins, the press conference or maybe ceremonial weigh-ins, one or the other, when he had a square off with Dan Hooker, he ended up headbutting him as soon as they squared off. There was a time where he swung at a fan on the way to the ring or on the way to the cage, UFC 300. Yep. And there's things like that. And so he's had some behavioral issues, nothing too extreme, but nothing bad enough for him to get sued or cut or anything like that, but enough where he's kind of seen unfavorably. So I've seen some fans say that's the reason why he was passed up. Part of it is because he just fought, even though he didn't really take any damage and he's not, medically uncleared. But also just doing little behavioral issues here and there, they don't really feel like he deserves to be rewarded. So that's one fan theory. I don't know if that was part of it. Maybe it's, Dana's idea at all for that to be part of it. I don't know. But that's at least one theory that's out there. But a lot of people are saying that when it comes to merit, when it comes to who's beat who and how talented they are, a lot of people believe that Arman Sarukian should be next. But these are the cards that were dealt. I think if nothing else, Paddy versus Justin happens. We crown our interim title or our next interim champion. Probably going to be Paddy Pimblett, but we don't know for sure. And then if Ilya is still not prepared to come back in time, then Arman could challenge whoever the interim champion is. Or
we cannot have someone defending an interim belt. That's the kind of thinking that killed the heavyweight division.
I'm just saying, though, it still happens. It can happen. Or another thing that can happen is Paddy versus Justin, whoever's the interim champion, whenever Ilya is ready to come back, they unify, and whoever the winner is of that fight, then Arman challenges whoever comes out on top of that, battle for King of the Hill there. Which I think is probably the most likely.
The problem is he needs to figure out how to get butts in seats.
He does.
He's really just an unlikable guy.
I think being unlikable kind of helps, though. If you do it right.
It's one thing if you're a heel. It's another thing to be genuinely unlikable.
Yeah, you have tune in heat and go away heat, as they say in wrestling.
Well, this whole card for 324 is about as many eyes as you can possibly get. Look how stacked it is.
I haven't really looked at it yet, but
Well, of course, you got Gaethje versus Pimblett. You got Harrison versus Nunes. O'Malley versus Yadong. Cortez Acosta versus Lewis. Allen versus Silva. Grasso versus Namajunas. Umar Nurmagomedov versus Figueiredo. I mean, it's just stacked to the nines to kick off the Paramount deal.
yeah, that is a pretty good card.
Yep, and they're going for big names too. You know, I mean, when you look at it, Amanda Nunes coming back. I mean, Amanda Nunes, that alone, I mean, that's worth discussion. But her versus Kayla Harrison, we just watched what I thought was maybe the biggest women's fight in the 1-2 was Shevchenko fighting Wei Li. But now, I mean, Nunes and Harrison, that's arguably just as good, if not better.
Oh, yeah,
Gaethje, everybody knows Gaethje. He's going to Patty Pimblett, same thing. O'Malley, you know, you go all the way down. Derek Lewis, he's not necessarily a top 5 guy, but everybody knows the knockout king. So, yeah, it's just they're going for star power, no doubt.
Yeah, because Cortez Acosta is on a win streak here. I think 3 long, and Lewis is ranked number 8, coming off a couple knockouts. But Acosta's ranked number 5. He's fighting down because he gets the name value out of it.
Absolutely, he's going to get that shine. You know, if you beat Derek Lewis, knock him out. I mean, he goes from top 5 to now we're talking about he's a title contender, just like that.
Now we're talking about he's an interim title contender.
Right.
That's what people can hope for now. Interim titles. That's all the UFC is going to be. One interim title after another.
Just wait.
I mean, you start the Paramount deal with an interim title fight. That's, to me, is like the ultimate womp womp. You know, that's not how you want to start the Paramount deal.
No.
Just wait until we have an interim BMF title.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so there is this big debate between fans about what's more important whenever it comes to building your way up, going up through the rankings, and eventually challenging for a title. Is it star power or is it merit? And sometimes you want to find a little bit of balance of both. But there has been some matchmaking recently. This one being an example. Some people agree that it should be Patty and Justin because they do have the star power. Other things that Armand should have it because of the matchmaking. Or I'm sorry, because of his merit.
And nobody's talking about Max or Charles, who are ranked higher than Justin and Patty each.
Well, that's another topic. I was going to get into another example of a lot of people complaining about star power versus merit, and that is going to be the headline for UFC 325. I know we're jumping way ahead of the gun, but it's just part of this topic on people complaining about the matchmaking, and that is Diego Lopez getting another shot at Alexander Volkanovski over fighters like Leroy Murphy and Movsar Evloev, who are on a better tear than Diego Lopez has lately. And a lot of people think that those guys should be more deserving because of, the work they've been put in and the fact that Diego had a recent shot against Volkanovski, lost, and has only pulled off one win since then. So that's another example. A lot of people are complaining about that. A lot of people think it's too soon. Diego already lost and shouldn't have another shot, period. What do you guys think about that one?
Well, Evolov, however you pronounce it, Evolve.
Okay.
Evlov.
Movsar Evolve hasn't fought in over a year. I wouldn't give him a title shot because he's just inactive.
I do agree.
What's the point? Diego's ranked right behind him. You're talking about Leroy Murphy. Murphy is coming off of, 2 wins?
Something like that. I don't have his numbers pulled up in front of me.
Murphy is 17-0-1.
Wow.
Crazy.
So he's got 7 first-round finishes, 8 wins by knockout. He's on a 9-fight win streak, so he's never actually been beaten. And I think when you look at divisions, you have to look at, have all the contenders had their turn, which is why this is kind of perplexing. Like, here's a guy, Diego Lopez. We all love him. He's entertaining. I mean, he had one of the fights of the year earlier this year. But just to say, okay, cool, you had an entertaining performance, that doesn't mean you have the merit that goes with that. I mean, when you talk about a guy who's undefeated, you have to at least give him an opportunity in my mind. He hasn't run through the division. He hasn't cleaned it out. We're not getting everybody on their second turn through. We have, deserving guys that still haven't had their chance. That's why it's like, why are we going with Diego Lopez within a year's time? To me, it makes no sense.
Right.
So I can tell you why Murphy isn't getting it. Out of his last 10 fights, he only has 3 finishes.
Yeah, UFC
so
does
everything else is decisions.
Right.
Yep.
I still think it's a bad move to give Diego Lopez a shot this soon for another shot of Volkanovski. Now, anybody that knows me knows I'm one of the biggest Diego Lopez fans out there. I've sung his praises
He's
on
even
several
got the
episodes.
haircut.
I ignore the haircut. The dude seems to have a pretty entertaining personality, really entertaining fights. I'm a big fan of the guy, honestly, but I think it's a bad move, period. He just lost. He didn't really have any answer for anything Volkanovski threw at him. So it seems like he needs a little cleaning up to do with his game. And I think he just needs to have some more fights to build that experience up instead of giving him another shot. Like, he lost. He had one fight and give another shot again. He needs more time to build up. So I think it's actually not a good idea as a Diego fan to put him against Volk this soon. He needs more time to build up. And I think, and I've said this before on an older episode, I think the perfect match for him would be Yair Rodriguez. They're both ranked 2 and 3. They both already fought Volkanovski and lost. They're both trying to give another shot at him. They both have drama with each other. Have those two fight. You could give Evloev or Murphy or someone else who is knocking on a title shot a shot in the meantime. And if Diego wins against Yair Rodriguez, maybe that's enough at that point.
Yeah, 2 title shots within a year of each other is a little excessive.
Right, especially when you have other challengers out there, and I really think he just needs more time to build up. I think if you throw him to Volk this soon, he's not going to have enough time to have sharpened up his game, and it could be just another performance like last time. He needs more of that experience to go against the beast that is Volk.
And Volkanovski hasn't fought anybody since he beat Lopez. So.
Correct. Yeah, he should have. I think Murphy would be a good opponent, even if he doesn't have as much of a finish rate. The fact that he is ranked number 4, or maybe even Yair. When's the last time Volk fought Yair Rodriguez? I'm not sure, but yeah, I think that there just needs to be more
2023.
Fights. Right. I think there just needs to be more fights between these two before you put them against each other this soon. So I see a lot of people complain about this fight as well being booked up. A lot of people are complaining about matchmaking on star power versus merit. So I understand with Evloev not getting a shot, though, because if you've been out for over a year, you haven't fought. I don't know why he hasn't fought. I haven't looked into that, but it's kind of weird to be sitting inactive for a year. Then they're like, hey, you're challenging for the title. If Evloev would have fought and beat anybody in the top 10, in the last 6 months, I think that would be a good enough argument to put him against Volkanovski, considering that he's ranked number 1. And
I think it's also weird. I think it's also weird that he hasn't fought in over a year and he's still number 1. Yet you see Paddy Pimblett, who just moves up because other people fight and lose ahead of him, and he just keeps jumping up and up and up. But you also should be penalized whenever you're not fighting. You shouldn't be able to hold on to a number 1 status and you not even defend that. I mean, it's got to be earned.
Sometimes these rankings really blow my mind. I see people still in the rankings.
Rankings is the worst thing the UFC has implemented in the last 10 years. You see people dodging fights because of the rankings. Nobody wants to fight down. It's absurd.
Yeah, 100%. I see people. I understand why the rankings exist. They need to exist, but the way it's done is just weird. I see people moving up and down when they really don't need to. Like, I think I was ragging on 2 names always come up when I think about the rankings. That's Colby Covington and Michael Chandler, who have lost way more than they've won lately, and they're still in the top 15 when they have killers that are ranked below them, and I just don't understand it. I was complaining about Benoit Saint-Denis being ranked below Michael Chandler. After Benoit Saint-Denis beat Dariush, he jumped all the way up to number 8, and Dariush dropped down to 12. So if Dariush dropped down to 12, that means Chandler moved from 12 to 11, even though he hasn't fought. He's on a losing streak.
You're just a Chandler hater.
Well, I'm actually not. I have nothing against Chandler. I think he does fight a bit on the dirty side, but I'm just looking at the numbers here. Like, Chandler is on what is his current losing streak?
I think
Well,
5.
he's lost 5 out of 7 fights in the UFC.
Right. So I'm pulling it up now. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. He's lost 5 of his last 6, and he's only fought once in 2025, and it was a loss. And somehow he's ranked above Dariush, and Dariush has actually won matches within the last couple of years. So sometimes these rankings just make absolutely no sense to me. I think sometimes they're trying to keep people in certain positions just for future matchmaking ideas for exciting fights that draw money. At the end of the day, I think that when it comes to who's beat who and how good they are, these rankings are not very accurate, in my opinion.
No, I agree. A lot of times they just want to reflect something, to your point, where it's like, number 11 ranked Michael Chandler's going to be fighting on this card. So the casuals like, oh, I know that name, Michael Chandler. Wasn't he supposed to fight McGregor? Oh, he's 11th. They don't know any better, so they tune in and watch it. And I think that's where you get a lot of that.
Chandler is ranked above Dariush and Mauricio Ruffy.
And Bahamondes, who was in the fight of the year last year, who's an exciting young fighter. Grant Dawson's even more. I mean, and really it goes further and further. There's been so many fight nights that I've watched that they're like, this lightweight 16-1, and he's got 10 straight, finishes, and he's not even ranked. But yet you see Michael Chandler with that big 11 next to his name. It makes no sense.
Yeah, you have people who actually have wins. Like Dariush is coming off of a loss, but he's coming off of several wins. Here, let me pull up here. So he is 1-3 in his last 4, but I mean he did beat Moicano. He has had more recent wins, a lot more recent wins than Chandler has, and he's ranked below him. And then who's the other name that we mentioned? Hoofy. Hoofy's had like 1 loss in the UFC, and he's ranked below him. Like 1 loss, not 5 losses, 1 loss. But Chandler's above him.
Chandler's legacy is going to be inactivity, waiting for Conor.
But he moved up in the rankings. He moved from 12 to 11, doing nothing but lose.
Yep.
Colby Covington's still floating around the top 15. Why? I don't get it.
Yeah, it makes no sense. But hey, you know what? He brings eyeballs, so that's the thing.
Speaking of eyeballs, there's been an update to Tom Aspinall's eyeball situation.
Uh-oh.
Are you talking about Brown's disease?
Brown disease. So it's something I've never heard of. But Tom Aspinall announced that he has Brown disease, which is apparently caused from multiple different things, but one of them is eye trauma, and it's resulted in him not being able to move his eyes up correctly or something like that. But it seems like he has a serious issue with his eyes after the Cyril Gane thing. So a lot of the haters out there saying that he was faking it, he was milking it, he was just losing, and blah, blah, blah. His eye injury wasn't that bad. The dude has been diagnosed with a severe trauma eye injury. I don't know if he's going to need surgery. I don't know if he'll ever recover from this. I don't know if it's something to go away on its own. I don't know much about this. This is kind of breaking news on my end. Do you guys have any more info on this one?
So I read up on the treatment. You start out treating it with steroids. If steroids don't work, then it requires eye surgery.
Well, he is a UFC heavyweight fighter, so steroids is probably not new to him. Wait, different steroids. Never mind. Sorry, I had to throw a little gag in there.
But this is his right eye is, in fact, worse than his left. And this is just the negative side effect of allowing fouls in the sport. Gane hit him, touched his face so many times in that half a round. It was absurd.
Right. So they haven't announced anything when it comes to the fallout of him being champion, his title, if he's not going to be medically cleared to fight soon enough. Nothing's been announced yet that I have seen. All that being said, just knowing the history that we know, if he does have
time for a Nostradamus prediction, interim heavyweight champion.
And I know we're tired of hearing this. I know we're all groaning. We hate it. We don't want it to happen. I don't want it to happen. You guys don't want it to happen. But this is something we will possibly see. Unless he decides to just vacate, say it's not worth it. He's tired of the fan hate. And I don't know. He could vacate and say he's going to be out for a while. or we just end up having another interim title. Whether it is, again, I'm going to clarify for people listening, there hasn't been anything announced officially. That being said, if we do have an interim champion that's going to be put in his place,
and our track record on calling these kind of things is pretty solid.
Right. Or if he decides to vacate and they just have another bout for the vacant title, the big question that I have is, who do you think would end up probably fighting for the interim or vacant title if that happens?
Well, the one that bothers me is Cyril Gahn. You can't reward him with an interim title shot for eye gouging the champion. You just can't do it. But who else do you throw up there? Waldo Cortez Acosta, if he takes down Derek Lewis, is definitely going to get the shot, going to get the nod. Volkov against Gahn part 2? I don't think so.
I think that'd actually be part 3, unless I'm mistaken.
Oh, part 3. You're right. Yeah. And then Pavlovich versus Gahn part 2. Who cares? Blades versus Gahn, but Blades is in that situation of what have you done for me lately?
And this goes back to what I talked about in the last episode where we talked about this stagnant heavyweight division. We have so many names here that have been sitting in the top 15 for a very long time. Most of them, the majority of them, have already fought each other at least once. And they've been here for like over a decade. They're not moving up. They're not moving down. They're just there. And we've been saying for a long time now, ever since we started this podcast, we've been saying that the heavyweight division needs more young blood. And this is a good example of that, because now if we do have a vacant title fight or an interim title fight coming up for the heavyweight division, and we're looking at the rankings, we look at who's there, and it's a whole bunch of stagnant names that have been there forever that we just can't really get behind, thinking they should be the new face of the heavyweight division. So we need some of this young blood coming up. Waldo Cortez Acosta, currently ranked at number 5, is a really good name for that because he's still working his way up. You have Walter Walker, and I mentioned a few people, Vitor Petrino, who's not ranked, and I mentioned Mario, his name slipped my mind right now, Mario Pinto. Those are 2 other up-and-coming guys that I would like to see break into the rankings that could help shake things up, but they're not even currently ranked. So we really got to get some young, fresh blood in here to shake things up, because I'm sick of these stagnant names that are not going anywhere, that have already faced each other a million times, really doing nothing for the division.
Look at Tai Tuivasa. He's on a 5-fight losing streak. He's ranked number 12. We just talked about Chandler and how he's not deserving. How is Tai Tuivasa a top 12 heavyweight? He's lost 5 in a row. We have got to start elevating some of the new blood. I think Acosta is the perfect example of what they need to try and push, and I think that's why he's getting Derek Lewis, because there's literally not one other name that you would say, oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Let's do that. That's something to get excited about. Acosta's fought 4 times this year. He's won all those times. He beats a name like Derek Lewis. He is a deserving, at least in many people's minds, opponent, or at least one of the 2 who's going to fight there for an interim. So I think you got to do that. And again, you can't reward Cyril Gahn. To Roy's point, you can't reward him with another fight. You got all that money and you eye gouge the guy. Maybe his vision will never even return the same. Who knows? You can't just throw him back in there. There's got to be some kind of penalty. They didn't penalize him in real time with the disqualification that he deserved. You certainly can't give him an opportunity to put a belt over himself. So I don't know. To me, you got to get him out of there. And then you really, again, got to start promoting some of that newer talent, give them some of these bigger names so we can get the division kind of churning and get some of the old out and the new in.
Exactly.
I think that the fight to make would be Where's Waldo versus Pavlovich part 2. Let Waldo go and Pavlovich beat him by decision.
Yeah, that's right. That was his one loss in 2025.
That's right. He did. That was a close
Waldo
one.
get that win back in 2026, and if need be, that be an interim title fight, because Gahn can't be rewarded with another shot at the strap after this. It's just not feasible.
And I look at these other names that are in the top 5, Volkov, Blades, Pavlovich. I like these guys, and they could put on some fun fights, but they've already kind of peaked, and I just don't see them winning a title unless there's like no one else and you have a vacant title or something like that, and you just put them against each other. But these guys have already had shots against the guys who are in the very top of the division and lost multiple times. So...
Well, the problem with Volkov and Pavlovich right now is that they're both in Decision City. They're not finishing fights.
Blades too, and Blades also close fights. I think he's had one. I think he finished Almeida, but I think most of his fights is the same thing. And I'm a fan of all these guys.
Ooh,
but
finished Almeida.
Right. Now, to be fair, it was a very good comeback. You know, he was getting out wrestled, and he came back and won by TKO. But I look at those other three names in the top 5, and it's like, what are they doing? You know, it's clear that they can't compete at the highest level. They could make it to the highest level, but they're not going to win at the highest level. They're not going to stay at the highest level. If one of those guys became champion somehow, they would lose it just as quickly as they got it. So we really do need some of this young blood to come up there. Sirigan, as much as we are hating on him right now because of the fouls and not deserving after, you know, causing all this in the first place, he's at least talented enough where I could understand his name being up there. Obviously, Tom Aspinall. Outside of that, we could just purge all of these other names in the top 15, minus Acosta and Walker, because all those other guys they're not doing anything. We really got to get some more up-and-coming people to shake things up. I know I've said it a million times, but I think it's just really, really important because we're going to see if Aspinall says he can't fight for a while, we need to either vacate and have a vacant title shot or an interim title shot. We're going to see how big of a problem this is when we start looking at these names that you're looking at like, really? Like, that's going to be our future champion? Okay, like, that's what we're left with.
Yeah. And we don't know how long Tom's going to be out. I'm sure they'll do the interim title before making him vacate, because it is for a legitimate foul injury.
Right.
They got to give him as much leeway as they gave Jones for ducking.
Ugh.
Right.
Don't get me started on that.
So I think we could see Tom. I think we could see Tom returning for the White House card. You know, everything's getting angled towards the White House card, and if everything clears, I don't see them having him fight anytime before then. So I guess we'll just have to see what plays out in front of him and settle it there.
Right.
Now I will tell you this: Derek Lewis. If you put him, like, let's say he beats Waldo, let's say he knocks him out, all of a sudden people are going to be saying, "Why not? Why not Derek Lewis?" And Derek Lewis maybe fights, I don't know, maybe he does end up getting that title shot versus Tom just because, again, eyeballs, 3 straight knockouts if he does it. I could see him getting elevated there for a gimmicky title fight.
Yeah. So let's say
put Lewis against Gon and watch Gon go to sleep.
I'd love that.
Yeah, that would make my day.
That would be great.
Well, that's all I got on the Tom Aspinall situation. Anything else you want to add to that?
For me, it's just a travesty.
I hope he gets well fast.
Yeah, I hope he gets well fast. I hope we don't have an issue where he needs to vacate or make an interim champion in the meantime. I don't want to see that. It's not good for anybody. So I hope he's able to recover fast enough, be medically cleared, and come back soon. That's really all I got to say on that.
Yeah,
yep.
Heavyweight division needs him badly.
Right.
They're struggling.
I guess we can move on to the next topic, and that is previewing the pay-per-view next week, the last pay-per-view that we're going to have before we go to the Paramount deal. So it's really the last pay-per-view period, because now it's just Paramount subscription.
That's right.
And it's a pretty solid card. What do you guys think about this card overall?
So we got Merab in a rematch versus Jan. They fought once before. Merab won every round, according to every judge. It was 50-45 on all 3 cards. Merab did what Merab does. He takes you down, he takes you down, he takes you down, he takes you down. The reason this will be any different, Jan, of course, is great with his hands. Maybe he catches him coming in, but I feel like we say that about every time Merab fights somebody. Maybe O'Malley can catch him coming in. Nobody catches him coming in. Merab just is excellent at what he does. He times things well. He changes levels. There's a reason he's a champ, and there's a reason he's going for 15 straight victories. The man's incredible. I would expect to see him retain his belt. I do think it could be entertaining. I do think, the last one did go the distance. Maybe this one goes the distance as well. Maybe it's, a little closer, but I don't think we're going to see any difference at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the same outcome, my opinion.
Yeah.
What you think, Nostradamus? What is your prediction?
Merab's going to do Merab things. It's going to be a very grindy 5-round fight. Goes to decision where Merab takes it all.
And Jan is going to look very annoyed just being on the ground and trying to struggle to get back up. He's going to get back up, then get taken down again, and just start looking really frustrated. That's what I predict.
Yeah, I think so.
Right.
I think we all see this one going the same way. It's not going to be exciting, but it's going to be dominant.
The next fight, we actually have 2 title fights on this card. I think the next one could be pretty exciting.
Exactly. It's little guys doing little guy stuff.
Dude, flyweight, people back in the day did not give 2 hoots about flyweight. Whenever Mighty Mouse was champion back at that era, if I remember correctly, they didn't even give flyweight champion pay-per-view points because no one cares about flyweight. At one point, Dana White was talking about trying to get rid of the flyweight division, but lately, man, the last, I'd say, couple of years, people have really been tuning into flyweight. They've really given flyweight its flowers because we've just been getting so many really exciting fights. We have a lot of exciting fighters at flyweight. You know, got like Royval, Moreno, Van, and of course the champion Pantoja. We have this title fight coming up. Alexander Pantoja versus Joshua Van. Joshua Van coming off of his match against Royval, which was fight of the year, if I'm not mistaken. It was absolutely incredible. How do you guys see this fight going? I think Pantoja is going to win. As good as Van is, I don't think he has experience or the grappling credentials to stop Pantoja from eventually taking him down. I think Pantoja is going to do like he does most people. He's going to take him down. He's going to eventually take his back. He's going to choke out Van by the second round, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
The best thing about these little
I think Pantoja's going to do
is their cardio. They're going to be able to keep up an incredibly high rate for the whole fight, and I love to see it.
Who do you think is going to win?
Oh, Pantoja.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, this is an easy Pantoja win.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say easy. Van's no joke. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, no, I see Pantoja doing that as well. He's going to take the victory on the mat. But what makes Pantoja so great is no matter what you're good at, he can take it away or he can just go to another realm. That's why he's one of the top 5 guys in a time where we've seen some of the best champs of all time. He is one of the very best. I see that going the same way. Now, yeah, that Royval fight that Van had earlier this year, that should win fight of the year. There was probably over 1,000 punches thrown in 25 minutes. I think each of them had over 500 thrown and
That's
a bunch
insane.
landed. It was, I got to go back and rewatch that. That was such an amazing fight. If you like stand and bang, that's stand and bang. And flyweight, you know, it really hasn't been all that popular, but I think recently it is attracting more people because you're realizing you can see some fights with the cardio and the quickness that you would never be able to experience at higher weight classes. You know, just the back and forth. It's super entertaining. But again, Pantoja is just the elite at what he does. He's going to go to the mat and second or third round, he could probably finish it. Van's younger. He's still pretty inexperienced, young 20s. He hasn't been at this level yet. And so I think he learns a lot. I think we see him get a return in the next 2-3 years. But Pantoja is going to show you why there's levels to this game.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm pretty sure I'm accurate here, Pantoja is the longest reigning current champion in the UFC, period, men or women.
Wow.
He was really, really
right.
good. And flyweight, yeah, you talk about like the cardio and the high energy. It's like watching real life anime fights. It's like real life Dragon Ball Z watching these guys fight. It's insane. Like something you see in a martial arts movie where they're swinging, punching, kicking, dipping, dodging, all that stuff like faster than the human eye could, process. They're just such good fights to watch.
You watch like a middleweight fight and up, and it feels like it's on fast forward, like times 4 when you watch the flyweight. It's just da-da-da-da-da-da. It's just so much action. Like, oh my God.
Right.
Well, they have to use punches and bunches because nobody's going for the one punch knockout at flyweight. That makes it really interesting.
It does.
And that's not the only flyweight fight we have on this card. There's a fight right before that. You have Brandon Moreno, who's been in for a while, a really good fighter, 23-8. And he's going against this guy. I don't think I've seen him fight yet. Tatsuro Taira. He's 17-1 with 5 knockouts and 8 submission wins.
Yeah, I haven't seen him fight.
He fought recently. His one loss was actually in 2024. He had a split decision loss against Brandon Royval. But now he's going against Moreno. And Yeah, he's got a pretty solid record, so maybe a future contender to the title. If he gets a win over against Moreno, that's a big name that's been in the division for a while. So I think that could really put him in the runnings for a title shot. But they're going to be fighting also. That's the feature fight on this card, so that should be really fun. Not sure who's going to win that one. What do you guys think, Moreno or Tyra?
Want Tyra to win just so the new blood coming up fleshes out the division a little bit, but wouldn't be disappointed with Moreno.
Moreno has 33 total fights. Did I say he was 33-8? I meant 23-8 earlier.
23-8.
So he has and 2 draws. So he's had a total of 33 fights. He's only 31 years old.
Man,
that's a really active career, man. So he's got a lot of experience, and he's still young and healthy enough. He could be a problem, but we'll see.
He brings that entertaining style, the Mexican spirit, as they say. He likes to throw hands, but of course, he's got 11 submissions as well. He fought Figueiredo 4 times, and they had to have a 4th time because there was a win, there was a loss, and a draw. So it made sense they do it a 4th time. He took Pantoja to a split decision, and he took Royval to a split decision. He lost both of those, but he's shown he can compete at the highest level. What I'd like to see is I'd like to see a good contest, but ultimately, if we can get the new blood in there to win, it's a lot like these other divisions we see. We see these guys who've been there a while, but they start to age out. And when you've been in that many fights, it doesn't take much to really kind of move you along. You can age pretty quick once you get north of 30 and you've had over 30 fights. So I think that's what I'd expect here. Maybe a good competitive contest where he comes up just short.
And speaking of just moving right along to the next fight, speaking of continuing that narrative of the young blood coming up to challenge the old blood, trying to take over the guard for the division, you have Peyton Talbot going against Henry Cejudo. I think that's going to be a really fun fight. Bantamweight, one of the most accomplished champions of bantamweight history, going against Peyton Talbot, who's looked really promising. I think he has 1 loss on his record, and it was a pretty close decision. And he's looked so impressive. 7 of his wins by knockout. Peyton Talbot's really, really, really good. I don't know if you guys watch a lot of his fights, but he's really fun to watch, and he's a really young guy. How old is he? Let me see here. And he's going against Henry Cejudo. He is 27 years old.
Right there in his prime.
Going against a former champion. So another guy, another hungry competitor trying to work his way up the rankings, try to get a shot. But, of course, the person he'll have to face when he makes it to the top, if that happens, is Merab, who we mentioned earlier. So good luck, kid.
Right. Cejudo hasn't won since 2020. It's been 5.5 years.
Yeah.
I think this is a classic example. Again, Talbot's going to try and take that shine off Cejudo, and I think he can do it. Cejudo, some people laugh when he's like, I'm the most accomplished mixed martial artist, combat sports athlete of all time. But, of course, he did win a gold medal back in 2008. He has won a championship at 2 different weight classes in the UFC. I find that a little bit silly, but, I mean, if I had those accomplishments, I'd probably say the same thing.
Right.
But Talbot's explosive. Talbot's coming up. I would think Talbot gets the finish on Cejudo if he can kind of avoid some of that dangerous wrestling Cejudo presents.
Right, and that's actually a good point, because that could be a good test leading up to the fight, Merab, because if you're going against Merab, you really need to make sure you could deal with a very good wrestler. Henry Cejudo, not as good of a wrestler as Merab, because we saw those 2 fight and Merab ragdolled them, but still, if you face Henry Cejudo, and let's say Talbot wins, but it's close, he struggled a bit with the wrestling, he had to kind of fight his way out of some of it, and it was like a really close decision, you're going to look at that and go, sure, you beat Henry, but you struggled against his wrestling that much. Maybe we shouldn't put you against Merab just yet. Let's give you some more time to work on that before we throw you up against him. So it's a good way to kind of look at the outcome of that fight. So what is he ranked currently? I'm pulling up the rankings here. So you got Henry Cejudo is ranked 10. Peyton Talbot is ranked. He's not ranked. That's interesting.
That is interesting. And it's interesting that Cejudo's ranked 10 and you haven't won in 5.5 years.
I'm not seeing his name. Let me look at this list again. I don't see Peyton Talbot ranked. So, yeah, he's not ranked at all. So, obviously, if he wins, it's going to put him in the rankings.
Oh, for sure. And that name recognition alone is going to make you catapult.
Right. And we have a few other people with good wrestling in this bantamweight division. So I think he really should face some of these guys before he tries to fight Merab if he is trying to work his way up there, because your wrestling defense needs to be sharp going against somebody like him, or you're just going to get ragdolled like everybody else, and it's going to feel like you wasted your time.
And as a quick aside, I'll say this. When Merab fought Henry Cejudo, and the way he just out-wrestled Cejudo and dominated that match, to me, that's kind of like when it clicked. Like, oh, wow, Merab's not just really good, he's great. Because he absolutely ragdolled an Olympic gold medalist wrestler. Like, ragdolling.
Yes.
At wrestling. You know, and when I saw that, I was like, okay, wow. Wow, he is one of the top, 3 or 4 guys in the sport right now, because that was beyond impressive.
Right. We got one more fight on this card to talk about. We have Jan Blachowicz going against Bogdan Guskov. Jan Blachowicz, another one of the older guys that it's kind of at the end of his career. This is another. It seems like this card is built around the younger guys trying to challenge the older guys for the most part. Not that Bogdan Guskov is really young. He's 33, but he's going against 42-year-old Jan Blachowicz. So he is 3 losses, 1 draw, and 1 win in his last 5 fights. And Guskov is 18-3, and he's on a 4-fight win streak. How do you guys see this one going?
I think Jan's on his way out. This could be his last fight. I haven't heard that he's going to come out and say anything like that, but I wouldn't be surprised at all at the end of the day if he lays the gloves down, center of the octagon when it's all said and done. 42 years old, I don't. Whenever you start talking about guys in their 40s, you just can't expect them to have another, 2 or 3 fights. It feels like they're always at their last potential fight. And of course, if you lose, it just seems like it'd be the right time. Now with the win, maybe he stays, maybe he goes for one last little run. But I just, he's coming off, like you said, the 2 losses and a draw. And he's lost, 3 of his last 5 with the draw included. So he's, 1-3-1. It's definitely arrowed down for Blachowicz. Guskov, if he has an impressive performance, catapults himself as well up into the rankings. But I don't see Jan going out there many more times, if any more at all.
Jan has won 1 fight in his last 5, and he's ranked 5 for the record. Guskov is ranked 11.
Why is the light heavyweight and heavyweight divisions I just don't understand how they're this shallow. I don't get it. You'd think there's a lot of bigger guys, especially the heavyweight. You have that 59-pound weight variance. You'd think you'd have more talent at these heavier weight classes, but we just routinely, we don't see it. The last few years, we just have not seen it.
Yeah, light heavyweight is top heavy. You do have some pretty solid competitors in the top 3 or 4 if you count the champion. And then it seems like you have a couple of fun fighters, but not solid enough to kind of stay at the top. And it's just a massive drop off from there. It's a very top-heavy division. It's not as bad as the heavyweight division. Heavyweight division, I think, is even worse when it comes to the talent pool.
Yeah, heavyweight, you've got Tom and Gon, and then a huge drop-off in talent level to go to number 3.
Right.
Yep.
So Volkov, that's not even in the same world. At least with light heavyweight, you've got Yuri, Ankalaev, Olberg, Roundtree. I can't believe you got Blachowicz in there, but he's there.
Well, I think that's all we got on this episode. Anything else you guys want to say regarding all these topics?
Thank you to all our listeners.
Yep. I think we covered it.
Yeah. So make sure you do all the fun stuff. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, leave a comment, and all that fun stuff to help build this podcast up. And we will see you next week when we do a recap of UFC 323. So we will see you all then. Have a good one.